Inspector Vance stormed into the chief's office. "Good morning, Inspector," the chief said, blowing a few bubbles from within his globe. "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" Vance demanded angrily. "Paperwork," Chief Kaloxa said with a little smile. "Having a little bit of seaweed, not much. You withdrew the protection detail for Bill Archer?" "So I did," the chief said, floating idly. "I can't waste manpower on every deranged human with a blaster." "He is in danger!" "From this Patricia person." "Yes, you have made that abundantly clear," the chief said, cocking a yellow eye at Vance. "I'm certain the Terran deputy ambassador is going to cause a major diplomatic incident over some doddering old fool taking potshots on a fully shielded limo that she wasn't even in." "There won't be an incident. He will just disappear and chuckle they will eat him. Yes, that's exactly what they will do." "Inspector, I would think you would have outgrown your, what do you call them, fairy tales by now." "They aren't fairy tales. They are real. You weren't there. You don't know what they will do." "Look, Vance, you are a good man and a great cop, but you gotta let this go," the chief said, blowing bubbles of annoyance. "Patricia Who is the deputy ambassador. Accept it. The Saul Wars were a long time ago. If she was still this blood-drinking cannibal, wouldn't you think they would have caught her by now? Not her. Not that snake. Chief, you don't understand." "No, I don't, and I really don't care. I know you and every other human your age is losing their shit, but I can't devote manpower and resources over a century-and-a-half-old grievance that didn't even happen in my jurisdiction." "Not yet," Vance nearly shouted. "Not yet, but it will. And if it does, we will apprehend them and bring them to justice. This isn't the Sol system, this is Capital City. We have legions of detectives and lab technicians. They do something stupid and we will apprehend them, and if it is some sick shit like you, keep on about their immunity won't protect them. They will go to prison and we will throw away the key." "At what cost?" Vance snarled. "You going to wait until humans start disappearing or found with every drop of blood drained? I'm telling you." "This conversation is over, Vance. Get back to work." "Fuck you, sir." Inspector Vance strode angrily out of the chief's office, slamming the door behind him. The chief just watched him go and wiggled his head. "Oh, Vance," he thought to himself. "If only you knew who agreed with you." He activated his communicator. "Director, this is Chief Kaloxa. We lifted that protection detail." "Thank you, Chief," Director Axlia said, blowing a few bubbles on his vid screen. "Your loyalty to the Federation is to be admired. I just left an innocent sapient being completely at that Terran's mercy. Are you actually going to let them kill that guy? Then again, what is the blood of one more human on your hands at this point?" "I'm certain I don't know what you are talking about, Chief." "Yeah, and Milt don't stink," the chief growled. John walked into the lobby of the embassy and looked over at the reception desk. Toby was right. You really couldn't recognize Dawn anymore. "Welcome back, Ambassador," she said in a cool tone. "It's good to see you up and around so soon." "You know how it is," John said as he approached. "Can't keep a good man down." "Indeed." Dawn smiled and reached for the intercom. "Hang on a second," John said with a friendly smile. "Dawn, can we talk?" "Okay, sir." "You know Patricia Who isn't a good person, right? You know her history?" "It was a dark time, sir," Dawn said in a frosty tone. "All sorts of people did all sorts of things to survive and provide for their people. I'm sure if we put a lot of people under the microscope that Miss Who has had to live under, we would find all sorts of shit. Yeah, there's doing what you gotta do, and then there is doing what she did. You really need to look into your new commanding officer. If you ever trusted me, do it now. She is bad news, and you need to be careful." "I will, sir," Dawn hissed. How could John not understand? How could he not see true greatness when it was right in front of him? Jealousy, that had to be it. He couldn't hold a candle to her, and he knew it. "Great," John said with a smile. "Oh, and do yourself a favor. Even if you are starting to believe that tripe, keep that true Terran nonsense to yourself." "Sir?" Dawn said in surprise, her eyes widening. "True Terran? I'm not. I mean, I would never." "Not what I heard. It comes out of your mouth every time you touch those pearls she gave you." "Oh, she didn't mean that?" "Well, that is a relief. Still, be careful with that phrase. It could be easily misunderstood. You know that, right?" "Oh, I will. I mean, I don't believe that. People don't believe I... Do they?" Those of us who really know you don't. I mean, we served together for years, but still, best to drop it, John said with a paternal smile. Oh, I love the new look, by the way. Thank you, sir, Dawn said as she almost beamed at him. You look fantastic, but then again, you always did, John said with a smile. I did? Oh, he's just being kind. I looked awful. Well, no sense delaying any longer. Might as well go and see the old dragon? Or is it an old bird? Yes, Ambassador, Dawn said with a smile. Deputy Ambassador, Dawn said as she pressed the intercom button, Ambassador Wintersmith is here to see you. What a lovely surprise, Patricia said in a happy voice. Please, let him into his office. Don't get up, John said with a smile. I got it. With that, he opened the door and walked inside. John, Patricia exclaimed, rising to meet him. Patricia, looking as lovely as ever, John said, stepping forward. It is simply amazing what the surgeons can do. Oh, when you have my money, anything's possible. Patricia laughed her musical laugh as she embraced him. John was keenly aware of her breasts pressing against him. You are back so soon, she said, releasing him after holding him just a moment too long. Color me impressed, she said as she let her hand drift down his good arm, sending electric surges of excitement through him while staring deeply into his eyes with a look that was unmistakable. God, he wanted her. As you said, anything's possible, John smiled, stepping away. I don't have your cash, but I was able to manage a trick or two. I can see that. I love the arm, she exclaimed as she took his artificial hand. What little surprises did you sneak in there? She asked impishly. Oh, didn't have time, John laughed. I just told them to slap something on ASAP. I had to get back to the hen house before a certain serpent ate all my eggs. Patricia just laughed a delightful laugh. Oh, you, she laughed, flashing him a seductive smile. All of your real eggs are quite hard-shelled, she laughed. None of them were going to be so easily swallowed. Well, not all of them, John smiled, and then stared deeply into her eyes. If Dawn gets hurt because of your bullshit, there will be hell to pay. Oh, John, she laughed dismissively. You worry too much. Dawn is special. I would never harm that glorious potential. Oh, the things she can become. Yeah, John said as he held his gaze. That's what I'm worried about. We can play grab-ass all day, but if one of my people, Dawn included, gets hurt, you won't like it. Really? Patricia said wickedly. And exactly what will you do about it, I'm honestly not sure, John replied. And personally, I would prefer not to find out. Me either, Patricia smiled. Such unpleasantness is no way to welcome you back, and absolutely no way to start our relationship. Our professional relationship, of course, she said, transfixing him with a wanton stare. Besides, Dawn is just my secretary, nothing more. She is not worth ruining our relationship over. She smiled warmly. In fact, I would offer to dismiss her, but she is so happy. I couldn't break her heart like that. I mean, if you insist. John pondered the options. No, there was a trick there. He just couldn't see it. It wouldn't be that easy. Not necessary, John said. I will hold that option in reserve for now. Patricia's emerald eyes twinkled. John was no fool. She liked that. Of course, if you change your mind, just say the word and I will have her replaced. Thank you, Patricia. John smiled warmly. You aren't as bad as everyone says you are. She just laughed a musical laugh. I like you, John, she smiled as she ran her finger down his chest just a little bit too far, sending his head reeling. This is going to be fun, she stepped back. I will retreat to my domain now. I've already taken the liberty of moving my things. She walked away, swaying her hips hypnotically. Once she left, John gripped his desk and adjusted himself, shifting the beginnings of an erection to a more comfortable position. Oh, shit, he said to himself. She is trying to pull a Nakamura on me. That afternoon, Patricia paused by Dawn's desk. I won't be able to meet with you this evening, child. You won't? Dawn asked in alarm. I'm afraid not. I must meet with my bloodlords concerning matters you are not yet ready to deal with. I can handle it. Oh, my dear sweet child, Patricia smiled. I have no doubt, but we can't push you forward so quickly. I trust you completely, but my men, they still need a little time. Give them a little time to get to know you, and you will be sitting with us in no time. Yes, ma'am, Dawn smiled. She trusted her completely. Just practice your art, and we will meet again tomorrow. Yes, ma'am. Patricia fondly caressed her cheek as she walked away. Not yet, she thought. I need to own John first. As night fell, 4 humans silently entered a shabby hotel. They almost invisibly glided down the halls until they reached a locked door. With a barely audible click, the lock opened and they slid inside. Fang looked over at the other 3 and smiled. That fool Bill Archer dared to insult their master. Tonight, he was going to pay dearly, and they would feast. Across the street on a shadowy rooftop, Sir Valix opened a black polymer case, withdrawing a long tube with his taloned hands and placed it on his shoulder. Taking a moment to target the appropriate window, he pressed a button. The tube silently shuddered as a black projectile flew. It smashed through the window and quietly burst with a little psh. Inside, dozens of mini drones sprung forth, targeting anything with a pulse. Before they could react, Fang and his 3 companions fell to the ground. Impact confirmed. All targets down, a human female said into his earpad. Federation technology for the win, Sir Valix chuckled. He put the tube back into the case and faded into the night. The door to the hotel room opened, and a young human female walked in. She paused briefly to scan the 4 prone figures. Yep, they were down for the count. Wasting little time, she dropped the small duffel bag she was carrying and unzipped it. She walked over to the broken window and opened it. Then, she withdrew 4 harnesses. She put 1 on each of the figures. She activated one and the figure started to float. She guided it to the open window and pressed another button, triggering an optical cloaking field. She then pushed it out the window, and the parcel gently floated to an awaiting van. She then repeated the process for the other 3. She smiled. She then closed the broken window and with her gloved hands removed the rest of the glass. She went to the bag and pulled a fresh window pane which contracted slightly and then expanded to perfectly replace the one that was shattered. A quick pass with a sticky polymer roller picked up any stray glass fragments. She also took a few moments to gather up the fragments from the projectile casing. She returned to the bag. She pulled out a spray bottle and spritzed a few sprays into the air in the middle of the room and then around the doorway, on the doorknob, and on a few spots on the frame. She pulled out a small vial and withdrew a few hairs and scattered them about. Smiling with satisfaction, she grabbed the bag, stashed it out of sight, triggered her optical cloak, and waited. Bill Archer walked into the hotel carrying a bag of Chinese carryout. He kept looking around, one hand holding the bag, the other on his blaster. It was only a matter of time before they came for him. He had no doubt. He didn't regret a goddamn thing. He only regretted not getting a good shot at one of them. Let them come. He lived a full life, and if he went out taking even one of them with him, it was a good way to go. He did miss his family. He didn't even go home to pack. There was no way he was going to get anywhere near anyone he loved. He was a marked man. He opened the door to his hotel and paused. Something was wrong. He was old, but the instincts and reflexes were still sharp. He set down the bag and pulled out his blaster. He quietly entered his room, sweeping his blaster back and forth. Agent Pam Greer smiled approvingly. The old coot was everything she was told he was. She slowly and silently raised her pistol and pulled the trigger. The pneumatic pistol fired a dart with barely any noise. It hit Bill squarely in the chest. Bill hit the floor. As everything faded to black, he saw a pair of boots standing in front of him. He tried to raise his blaster, but it slipped from his numbed fingers. "I'll take that," Pam said cheerfully. Bill awoke to a pounding headache. Standing in front of him was a robot with a water-filled globe, a Kalesh. "Bill Archer, formerly William Blythe of the Black Comets, a pleasure to meet you," the Kalesh said. "Do you know who I am?" "No, fucker, I don't," he spat. "I am Director Axley, head of Federation Intelligence. Pleased to fucking meet you. I apologize for the dramatics, but considering your justifiably enhanced suspicious nature, I decided it best to subdue you before you started shooting at my agents." "Well, fuck you anyway. That shit hurt." "I don't doubt it. The dose was designed to bring down one of your horses." Axley laughed. "I'll cut to the chase. We have a common enemy, Patricia who?" "Well, nobody else in the Federation gives a shit." "That's because they weren't there," Axley replied. "I was an agent attached to the original diplomatic mission. I know exactly what that monster is. I also know that she wouldn't be here if she didn't have something planned. Whatever it is, we both can agree it's probably something we don't want to let happen." "You got that right," Bill said, trying to sit up. He failed. "You might want to take it easy for a while," Axley smiled. "Well, Bill, here's the deal. This evening, 4 of Patricia's henchmen entered your apartment, most likely to invite you to dinner." Axley opened her mouth, extending her fangs. "They didn't have a good night." "Oh, too bad," Bill grinned. "You have disappeared, just like they planned and just like more than a few people expected," Axley stated calmly. "The police, when they investigate, will find genetic material and very good lab-grown hairs implicating one of Patricia Hu's bloodlords. It will be assumed that they succeeded, and you were the guest of honor at one of their little tea parties." Axla paused to let that sink in. "You have 2 choices, William," she said. "One, we give you a lift back to the hotel. You enjoy that Chinese, and we continue to use you as bait, hoping they try again. Or, Bill asked. "Or you come to work with us," Axley said. "I'm putting together a task force with the sole mission of taking that bitch down. Anything goes. It doesn't matter how. She will fall. I could use a black comet on the team. You've dealt with them before, Fang and Barb. You disappear, the cops get tipped off. They find the fake genes, and we use your disappearance to hit them again. And you get to take another shot at them, and not with a dime store blaster pistol. You will be working with us, and we will fuck them up." "Heh," Bill said with a smile. "You said there were 2 options, but damned if I only heard one." Patricia sat at the head of a table, deep within a hidden part of the embassy, and glanced at her watch. She then glanced over at Marrow, who shifted uncomfortably. They were late. Fang should have been here by now. Crimson pulled out her communicator. No signal from any of the 4. It was like they never existed. She raised an eyebrow and passed her communicator over to Marrow. He frowned. This wasn't good. "My lady," Marrow quietly said to Patricia, "we may have a problem." The next morning, Inspector Vance stormed into the Terran embassy with a greatly distressed Detective Freela rushing after him. Toby, restored to his beloved desk, looked up from his tea. "Good morning, Inspector," Toby said with just a trace of disdain. Where the fuck is Stephen Marrow?" "Excuse me?" "Bill Archer went missing last night. We found his DNA all over the fucking place. I got you, you fuckers. I fucking got you." "Inspector," Detective Freela said uncertainly. "Maybe we should—" "Where is he?" Toby smiled with genuine pleasure. Inspector Vance was about to give himself a stroke, and that snake Marrow was in the shit. This was a good day. "Well, I am sure that Mr. Marrow is somewhere in the embassy," Toby said, sipping his tea, trying not to wiggle his eye stalks too vigorously. "However, I am going to need to see a warrant, BF." Inspector Vance slammed a tablet down so hard it almost shattered. "Read it and weep, asshole." Toby slowly picked up the tablet and read it. "Seems to be in order," Toby said after a delay just long enough to make Vance even angrier. "Unfortunately, this is only for questioning. As much as I would love to wrap him up with a bow and hand him over, and trust me, that would make my day, you will have to question him here in the embassy." "Bullshit. I'm bringing that fucker in." "No, you're not," Toby replied as he took another sip. "If you review the applicable regulations and laws concerning—" "I don't give a fuck!" "Inspector, sir." "He's right," Freela said, trying to show the inspector her tablet. "Toby," John said over the intercom, "please invite the inspector into my office." Toby rose from his desk and, taking his sweet time, ambled over to John's door. He hated Patricia and Marrow with a passion, but there were certain grudges that had to be honored regardless. After unnecessarily fumbling with the latch, he opened the door, making way for Inspector Vance and Detective Freela. "So let me get this straight," John said as he leaned back in his chair. "This guy goes missing, and you just happen to find Stephen Marrow's DNA and hairs all over the scene?" "Yes, exactly," Inspector Vance shouted. "They took him, probably flossing what is left of him out of their teeth right now." John sighed. There was no way in hell it would be that easy. As much as he wanted to believe the inspector, it didn't add up. "I know you are upset, Inspector, and I can empathize. Trust me, I know exactly where you are coming from," John said with a grim smile. However, let's think about this for just 1 second before we escalate this into something completely avoidable. This guy goes missing and Stephen Marrow himself, Patricia's fucking right-hand man, personally went to do the deed? Seriously? Not only that, but he fucking shot more DNA around the hotel than a teen on prom night? I'm sorry, as much as I would fucking love this to be true, it just doesn't add up, John said as Vance turned red in the face. I'm not going to allow you to cause a diplomatic incident and give the deputy ambassador any more ammunition than she already has by letting you drag Marrow out of here. You don't understand. No, I do, John said, looking at him sympathetically. I know our history, Inspector, and I know the deputy ambassador. If I honestly thought this would stick, I would hand him over to you and fucking tap dance all the way back to my desk. Unfortunately, this is bullshit. And if you would take a deep breath and let yourself to be the lawman that you are, you would see it too. John sighed and leaned forward. I tell you what, I will give you a private conference room so you can question him here, and if you give me copies of your evidence, I will personally make sure it reaches the hands of the right people in the Republic. I will also cooperate as best as I can within my mandate, John said, and then looked Vance right in the eye. But if you think I will let you just stomp all over my embassy and my republic, you are sadly mistaken, no matter how badly I want to just give you the fuck stain. If I do that, then I give the deputy ambassador exactly the kind of ammunition she needs to get me reassigned, and guess who is the ambassador then? Vance just sat there, breathing heavily. Detective Freela looked over at him nervously. John pressed the intercom. Toby, please set Inspector Vance up with a private conference room and inform Stephen Marrow that his presence is required. Should I summon someone from our legal department? Yeah, unfortunately we need to do that. Also let the vampire know her boy is in the shit. Yes, Ambassador. Patricia just sat at her desk in silence as Crimson and Marrow knelt in front of her. Axla, she thought. 4 of her riders missing and now definitive proof that Marrow was at the scene of Bill Archer's disappearance. It was her. It had to be. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, trying to calm herself. It was difficult. Not only was she unused to such a blow, but part of her embraced the rage. It had been so long since she felt its white-hot embrace. No, this wasn't the time for that. Soon. She just had to remain patient. It seems that we suffered a minor setback, she eventually said in a smooth, silky voice. She turned to Marrow. How conclusive is the DNA? Flawless. It's a perfect match, he snarled. I have no idea how they got it. Obviously you were careless, Patricia said coolly. Marrow flinched. That was unkind. Forgive me, Patricia cooed. We are most likely dealing with Director Axla. She has had plenty of time to scan you, and perhaps even gather samples back on Terra. This wasn't your fault. She stood and drew her dao, idly swinging it as she paced. Crimson and Marrow looked at each other with fear in their eyes. We have an alibi for you for the entire time, even if it is internal. It won't satisfy the feds, but it will satisfy the Republic, Patricia said as she swung her dao in clean, perfect arcs. She turned to Marrow and pointed the tip of her blade at him. Marrow flinched. Sadly, my child, our time here has come to an end. Marrow's eyes widened in fear. You simply must return to the Republic. Immediately. Marrow breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, how I was hoping I could rely on you here, Patricia said sadly. Your last task will be to coordinate with our legal team to facilitate your escape to the Republic. You will replace Monarch as my lead bloodlord there. She turned to Crimson. My child, the time has come for you to finally blossom into your true potential, she said with kind and loving eyes. Crimson smiled. Crimson, you are now my war chief here in the Federation. It falls to you now. Yes, my lady, Crimson exclaimed. Pull back all operatives to the embassy for now, Patricia said with a frown. I do not wish to lose any more of my riders until we know exactly what that eel is capable of. Yes, my lady. And you must remain inside the embassy at all times. Be sure to be able to document every single second. Yes, my lady. Leave me. I wish solitude. Yes, my lady. Both Crimson and Marrow exclaimed, and then rose to leave. Patricia sat and leaned back in her carved lacquer throne. The eel was a fool to move so prematurely, even if she just cost me dearly. She thought to herself. Then again, I was also a fool, she thought as her green eyes flared with annoyance. I was so fixated on John I forgot about the eel. The coffee guppy has grown fangs, it seems. Patricia leaned back and smiled. Things were getting so very interesting.